There's this uniquely frustrating moment when you are trying to learn a new skill, especially a language.
Oh, absolutely. It's universal.
Yeah, it's that moment where you realize you were completely stuck in what we might call the passive zone.
Right.
Like, you can read the articles perfectly, you can listen to the audio without missing a beat, and you know the vocabulary in your head. But then the second you actually have to open your mouth and speak.
Complete freeze.
Exactly. Complete freeze. The words just, they just vanish.
It is a remarkably common wall that learners hit. You build up this massive reservoir of passive comprehension, which, feels great, right?
Yeah, you feel like you're getting it.
Right, because it tricks your brain into thinking you have mastered the skill.
But you haven't.
No, because the act of production, the actual physical act of speaking, is completely disconnected from it. You essentially become a very well-educated mute in that new language.
Which is so frustrating. We hear this from learners all the time. So today, we are taking a deep dive into some fascinating source material that tackles this exact frustration head on.
I'm really excited about this one.
Me too. We are looking at a system outlined in a guide called 10 Minutes to Fluency, Daily English Speaking Habits. And this was originally developed by hosts Hina and Sam.
Right.
And our mission for today's deep dive is to deconstruct exactly how you can break through that speaking barrier. And we're going to use a surprisingly simple, completely partner-free method that takes only 10 minutes a day.
Just 10 minutes.
Just 10 minutes. So what does this all mean?
Well, to really understand what it means, we first have to look at the primary diagnosis these authors make about, why learners are failing in the first place.
Okay.
The core issue is an extreme imbalance in how we allocate our cognitive resources.
Meaning what? Exactly.
Meaning learners are consuming vast amounts of content. They are reading books, they're listening to audio, they're watching videos with subtitles.
Soaking it all up.
Exactly. They are soaking up information. But if you look at their actual physical speaking time, it is virtually zero.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second, because 10 minutes a day sounds a bit like a late night infomercial promise.
It does sound like a gimmick.
Right, like get fluent in just 10 minutes a day while you sleep. Is that really enough time to actually move the needle on something as neurologically complex as learning a language?
I had the exact same skepticism initially. I really did. It sounds unbelievable until you look at the mathematical reality of human habits.
Okay, lay the math on me.
So, if you practice speaking for just 10 minutes a day, 7 days a week, that equals 70 minutes of dedicated speaking practice every single week.
Which, let's be honest, that doesn't sound like a mountain of time on the surface.
It doesn't, but compare that 70 minutes to the baseline we just established, which is zero.
Ah, right.
The average language learner is spending 0 minutes speaking because they feel, they lack a practice partner.
Or they don't have time.
Right, they don't have a dedicated hour to study. Or they are simply too nervous to make mistakes in front of another human being.
Which is totally valid.
Totally valid. But going from literally 0 minutes of speaking to over an hour of dedicated, active, verbal output a week, that is a massive, transformative jump.
Wow, yeah, when you put it like that.
You are entirely shifting the dynamic of your brain's relationship with the language. You're going from passive decoding to active encoding.
I see where the leverage comes from now. 0 to 70 is, it's an infinite increase.
Exactly.
It really highlights that consistency completely trumps duration. Like, you do not need to lock yourself in a room for a grueling hour-long session on a Saturday to make progress.
No, not at all.
Those microdoses of 10 minutes add up remarkably fast.
And the barrier to entry is intentionally designed to be so low that you cannot use lack of time as an excuse anymore.
Right. Everybody has 10 minutes.
Everyone on Earth can find 10 minutes. But the real puzzle is how you actually spend those 10 minutes if you do not have a conversation partner sitting across the table from you.
Which brings us to the physical mechanics of speaking. I was reading through the notes on this source, and the authors make a brilliant point here.
It's a great analogy they use.
Yeah, because we often think of language as purely a mental exercise. We treat it like, a math problem.
Right, memorizing vocabulary lists.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mapping out complex grammar trees in our heads. But the analogy they use completely reframes it. They say speaking is highly physical.
It's physical training.
It's much closer to being a pianist. A pianist cannot just sit in an armchair, stare at sheet music, and expect their hands to magically play a Chopin nocturne.
They'd be terrible.
Right. They have to physically move their fingers across the keys every single day.
And that physical aspect is arguably the most overlooked component in all of language learning.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, your mouth, your tongue, your vocal cords, your lips, these are literal muscles.
Muscles that need a workout.
Exactly. They require physical training and repetitive motor programs to form the specific, unfamiliar sounds of a new language. You have to build the muscle memory in your jaw and tongue just as much as you build the vocabulary in your cortex.
So we have to start treating language practice like a literal physical workout. And the source material gives us some very specific tools for this.
Yeah, they have some great practical tips.
Starting with the simplest one, which is just narrating your life out loud.
Literally just talking to yourself.
Yeah, talking to yourself when you are alone.
Yeah.
Like you might be in the kitchen and you just say out loud, I am cutting the onions, or, now I am putting the pan on the stove, or the oil's getting hot.
And think about what is happening neurologically when you do that.
What's going on in the brain there?
You are forcing the brain to translate a real-world, immediate, three-dimensional concept into the target language. And then you're immediately forcing the physical muscles to execute that sound.
So you're skipping the translation phase. You are bypassing the textbook entirely. You are training the mouth to make the sounds naturally, bridging the gap between thought and physical speech.
And doing it without the terrifying pressure of another person waiting for you to finish your sentence.
Exactly. The pressure is zero.
Which leads perfectly into another technique the guide suggests, and I think this might be my favorite part of the whole text, the mirror trick.
Ah, this is a fun one.
The authors share this incredibly relatable, honestly kind of hilarious anecdote from Sam.
Sam's morning routine.
Yeah. So he was getting ready in the morning, standing in front of the mirror, brushing his hair, and he decided to use his practice time right then.
Multitasking.
Right. He just started talking to his reflection in full sentences. Like he was giving himself this intense pep talk, saying things like, okay, Sam, today's going to be a good day. You look fine. Stop worrying about your hair.
The catch being, of course, that he wasn't as alone as he thought.
No. His family heard him from the hallway, and they completely assumed he was on an intense phone call.
Which is so funny. He felt totally mortified when he realized they were listening. But the point the guide makes is that this is actually a brilliant exercise despite the awkwardness.
Oh, absolutely.
You stand in front of the mirror and you speak directly to your own reflection, holding eye contact.
And what's fascinating here is the psychological mechanism at play.
Okay, tell me more about that.
The mirror trick isn't just about practicing vocabulary, right? Or observing physical mouth movements, although that visual feedback is super helpful.
Right, making sure your mouth is moving right.
Yeah, but fundamentally, it's about practicing the feeling of being watched while you speak.
Because that feeling of being observed is exactly what causes the brain to freeze up during a real conversation.
Yes, we get stage fright.
Exactly.
Precisely. When you look in the mirror, you are making sustained eye contact. You see your own face, your eyes, your mouth moving. You are artificially simulating the social pressure and the vulnerability of a real conversation.
It's like tricking your brain.
The spotlight effect kicks in. By doing this daily, you are systematically desensitizing your nervous system to the embarrassment of speaking the language out loud.
You're kind of getting over yourself.
Basically, yeah. You are teaching your amygdala that it is perfectly safe to make these weird new sounds.
You are basically giving yourself daily exposure therapy to the reality of yourself as an English speaker.
That's a great way to put it.
And on a purely mechanical level, I imagine watching yourself ensures your mouth is actually opening enough to properly enunciate the vowels and consonants.
Oh, definitely.
Which is something a lot of us struggle with when we are nervous. We tend to, we mumble.
It acts as an instant feedback loop. You become your own dialect coach.
Okay, so the mirror solves the physical mechanics and the social anxiety. That's two huge hurdles.
Right.
But real-world conversations do not happen in a vacuum. And they certainly don't consist of giving yourself morning pep talks in the bathroom.
Usually not, no.
They require speed. They require a certain natural rhythm and cadence. So how do we train our brains to process and output language at the pace of a native speaker when we are, entirely by ourselves?
This is where we introduce a highly effective immersion technique that linguists call shadowing.
Shadowing.
The concept is straightforward, but it's pretty intense.
Sure.
You take an audio source of a native speaker. This could be a YouTube video, a podcast, or an audiobook.
Okay.
and you repeat their words almost immediately after they say them. You become their vocal shadow. You're trying to perfectly match their speed, their intonation, the rise and fall of their pitch, and their pronunciation.
Like an echo that is right on their heels, maybe just a half second behind.
Exactly, like an immediate echo. And the underlying mechanism of why shadowing works so incredibly well is that it forcefully hijacks your brain's natural processing speed.
Hijacks it how?
Well, it connects your listening comprehension directly to your verbal output in real time.
So no delay.
Right. Normally a beginner hears a sentence, they stop, they translate the words in their head to their native language, they formulate a response, they translate that response back into English, and then finally, they speak.
That is a massive cognitive traffic jam.
It is. It's so slow.
Yeah.
Shadowing bypasses that slow, analytical part of the brain entirely. You are training pure reflex and rhythm.
Wow.
You are adopting the music of the language before you even fully process the grammar.
It is almost like getting in the passenger seat with a professional race car driver.
That's a good analogy.
Like you are feeling the speed of the turns before you actually know how to drive the track yourself.
Yes, exactly. And to keep that spontaneous, quick thinking reflex sharp, the source introduces another concept.
Watch it.
Describing your world. This takes the idea of narrating your actions and expands it to literally everything around you.
Okay, so going bigger.
You turn your immediate environment into a classroom with absolutely zero preparation required.
You just look around and start naming and describing the environment in real time.
Right.
The examples they give in the guide are beautifully simple. Like you look at a kitchen table and you say out loud, I see a wooden table. There are 2 cups on the table. One is white, one has a flower pattern.
Perfect.
Or you look out a window and describe a car driving by or leaves moving in the wind. You are forcing your brain to generate spontaneous, unstructured sentences based on random visual stimuli.
And it forces you to retrieve vocabulary on demand, which is exactly what happens in an unpredictable conversation.
Okay, I understand the theory here.
Right.
But I have to push back a little on the practical application.
Sure.
Because it is one thing to do this in the privacy of your own kitchen, right?
Right.
But the source suggests making this a habit wherever you are.
Yeah.
At the market, on the bus, walking down the street.
Yeah, they do.
If I start narrating my grocery trip out loud, like, I can see red tomatoes, a man is choosing a very large cabbage. People are going to look at me like I have entirely lost my grip on reality.
You definitely get some weird looks.
Yeah, I am not doing that.
And it is a very valid concern. Social norms dictate that we don't usually broadcast a running commentary of the produce aisle to everyone around us.
Right.
But the source actually anticipates that exact reaction. The practical workaround they offer is brilliantly simple. Just whisper.
Whisper.
Yeah, you do not have to project your voice across the store. You can just whisper the observations to yourself quietly, almost under your breath.
Okay, but if I'm just whispering, why go to the trouble of moving my mouth at all? Why not just recite the words silently in my head to avoid any weird looks completely? Having an internal monologue is perfectly socially acceptable.
This raises an important question about the difference between thinking and doing.
Okay.
Why not just think it? Because of the motor cortex.
The motor cortex.
Even when you are whispering barely audibly, you are still physically engaging the vocal cords, the tongue, the lips, the jaw. You are still executing the complex physical motor program required for human speech.
Oh, I see.
When you just think the words silently, you skip the physical execution entirely. You are right back in the passive zone. Ah, right. Whispering out loud is infinitely more effective for building speaking fluency than an internal monologue because you are forcing the brain to physically fire those signals to the muscles.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. I will whisper to the vegetables, as they say in the guide.
The vegetables won't judge your grammar.
No, they won't. So let's review. We have assembled these highly practical tools. We have talking to yourself out loud to bridge thought and speech.
Right.
We have the mirror trick to simulate social pressure and build confidence. We have shadowing to build rhythm, speed, and bypass the translation loop.
Yep.
And we have describing the world to build spontaneous vocabulary retrieval. But having a bunch of shiny tools scattered on the floor doesn't build a house.
No, it doesn't. You need a blueprint. You need an architectural framework that tells you exactly when and how to use them. Otherwise, they just remain good ideas that you never actually implement.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the final piece of the puzzle, the anchor that holds all of this together, is the 10-minute timer framework.
This is the core of it.
This is how you take all of these separate, slightly chaotic exercises and compress them into a single, highly focused daily session.
The parameters the authors set out here are incredibly strict, and that strictness is entirely by design.
Yeah, tell us about the rules.
The rule is that you set a daily timer for exactly 10 minutes, not 15, not an hour, 10.
10 minutes.
And during those 10 minutes, your phone is on airplane mode. There is zero social media, no checking messages, no multitasking. It is pure, unbroken, focused attention on active output.
And they take the guesswork out of it entirely by breaking down exactly how to spend those 10 minutes. You don't have to invent a lesson plan every morning.
Right, which reduces friction.
Exactly. It is 2 minutes of talking to yourself about your day, 2 minutes in front of the mirror practicing eye contact and pronunciation, 3 minutes of shadowing a native speaker, and 3 minutes of spontaneously describing the world around you.
10 minutes total.
10 minutes total. The timer goes off and you are done for the day.
The precise breakdown of the minutes is helpful, but the real secret to this framework success lies in behavioral psychology.
Oh, how so?
It is the environmental anchor. The source is very clear on this rule. This practice must happen at the exact same time and in the exact same physical place every single day.
Same time, same place.
For example, it always happens at 7:30 in the morning, standing in your bedroom before you walk to the kitchen for breakfast.
I understand tying it to a time, but why the exact same physical location? Does the room really matter?
It matters a lot because of context-dependent memory and reducing cognitive load.
Okay.
If you have to wake up and decide when to practice, where to practice, and what to practice, your brain experiences decision fatigue.
Oh, totally. Making choices takes energy.
Right. And by the time you make all those choices, your motivation is drained. By anchoring the habit to a specific time and physical space, like your bedroom mirror at 7:30 a.m., the environment itself becomes the trigger. Yes. You step into that spot, and your brain automatically boots up the English practice program. It removes all the friction of starting.
That sounds fantastic in theory, especially on day 1 or day 2, when you are riding high on a wave of new motivation.
The honeymoon phase.
Exactly. But let's be realistic about human nature. Motivation is fleeting.
It always is.
What happens on day 14? What happens when you wake up, you didn't sleep well, the alarm is too loud, it's raining outside, you have a massive project due at work.
Yeah.
And you just absolutely fundamentally do not want to do your 10 minutes of English practice.
That moment, that exact morning of resistance, is the pivotal crossroad for any learner.
The make or break moment.
It is the moment where most people quit and retreat back to the passive zone of just, watching another YouTube video.
Because it's easier.
Because it's easier. The source addresses this head on with an analogy that I think perfectly encapsulates the reality of long-term achievement. Brushing your teeth.
Right, dental hygiene.
Let me ask you, when your alarm goes off on the rainy, miserable Tuesday morning, are you ever genuinely excited to brush your teeth?
No.
Do you wake up highly motivated, fists pumping in the air, thrilled about the prospect of applying fluoride to your molars?
Honestly, never. Not once in my entire life. It's just a chore I have to do.
But you do it anyway.
Of course.
You don't rely on a deep well of inspiration or motivation to brush your teeth. You rely on routine.
Habit.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the true, unglamorous essence of self-discipline. We culturally idolize motivation, but motivation is just an emotion. And emotions change with the weather.
They come and go.
Exactly. Self-discipline is not about possessing some magical enthusiasm that other people lack. It is entirely about taking the required physical action regardless of your current emotional state.
So it is completely severing the connection between feeling like doing something and actually doing it.
As the authors so powerfully state in the text, self-discipline builds the habit. The habit builds your English.
That's a great line.
You force yourself through the 10 minutes on day 14. Even if it feels terrible. After a few weeks of doing this at the exact same time and place, a neurological shift happens. The friction of starting entirely disappears.
It just becomes what you do.
It ceases to be a debate in your head.
Yeah.
It just becomes an automatic, non-negotiable part of your morning sequence. Exactly like brushing your teeth.
So to bring this all together for you listening, the most profound takeaway from this deep dive isn't just a list of speaking exercises.
Right.
It is the realization of how incredibly accessible fluency actually is when you break it down to its physical and behavioral components.
It's totally within reach.
You do not need a massive budget for an expensive private tutor. You do not need to purchase a premium subscription to the latest AI language app. You don't even need the courage to find a conversation partner right now.
Nope, none of it.
You literally just need your own vocal cords, a bathroom mirror, and a digital timer set for 10 minutes.
That's it.
By shifting your mindset away from passive, comfortable consumption and leaning into the slightly awkward, highly physical realm of active production, you change the game entirely.
Completely.
And by anchoring that practice with cold, emotionless consistency, you are taking a small, seemingly insignificant daily action and forcing it to create a massive compounding effect over time. 70 minutes a week, 300 minutes a month. The math is undeniably overwhelmingly in your favor.
It really is a brilliant masterclass in taking behavioral design principles and applying them directly to language acquisition. It bypasses all the usual excuses of time, money, and social anxiety.
It really does.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over today.
Let's hear it.
The source material we examined focuses strictly on acquiring a new language, but the underlying neurological and psychological mechanics of this strict 10-minute timer approach are completely universal.
Oh, that's a good point.
If just 10 minutes of highly focused, distraction-free, physically engaged daily practice can literally rewire your brain to process and speak an entirely new language, what other impossible skills or stagnant, unfinished projects in your life are just sitting there waiting to be unlocked?
Wow.
What could you accomplish if you applied this exact same 10-minute daily timer to writing that book, learning that instrument, or building that business?
That is an amazing question to leave off on.
Yeah.
Think about the passive zones hiding in your own life. Grab a timer, find your mirror, and cross over into the active zone.
Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for listening to Explore English Podcast.
Yes, thank you, everyone. It was such a wonderful episode today.
Please subscribe to Explore English Podcast and give this episode a like.
And share it with a friend who is learning English. It will mean so much to us.
And we have a question for you today.
Yes, leave us a comment below. Tell us, what will you talk about in your very first 10-minute English practice? Will you describe your room, talk about your morning, or shadow a speaker?
We would love to read every single answer.
See you tomorrow with a brand new episode. And if there is a topic you want us to cover, tell us in the comments right now.
Until tomorrow, keep speaking, keep practicing, and keep growing. Goodbye, everyone.
See you tomorrow.